Welcome into the Inside Scoop. Today is Wednesday, January 29th. We are live from Nashville, Tennessee, and I am your host, Josh Newberg. Thank you guys for watching. We got a really cool interview on today's show. We got Canes quarterback commitment, Dereon Coleman, a fan favorite for sure, and you're going to find out why. He's a really good interview. I hope you guys like it. We are also covering a lot of this recruiting action going on across the country. In today's video, we're covering Ohio State. I got Shea Dixon from the LSU site. He's right here in Nashville with me. We're also talking Alabama Junior Day, some action going on in Tuscaloosa. But first, we got a special guest here on the Inside Scoop. It's Miami quarterback commitment, Dereon Coleman. And I wanted to get him on because, boy, does he have a following here at the On3 Recruit channel. Anytime we talk Miami Hurricane recruiting, we got Canes fans in the comments section talking about Dereon Coleman. So here he is from Jones High School in Orlando, Florida. We welcome in Dereon Coleman. Dereon, thank you for taking time today to join the Inside Scoop.
No, thank you for just inviting me, having me on the show.
All right. Now, it is a recruiting show, so we're going to get right into it. Now, your recruitment, you burst onto the scene, and then during your junior year, you are trending heavily to Oklahoma, but you never committed there. The experts are throwing their picks in, whether it be the crystal ball, the recruiting prediction machine. Everybody had you going to Oklahoma, but on July 3rd, you end up committing to Miami. So now that I got you here, what happened between the time that all these predictions are rolling into Oklahoma, and then how'd you end up at Miami?
I mean, around that time, the predictions were right. You know, I was leaning towards Miami, but ever since Miami offered me, I just, I couldn't let that shot just go up like that. After they offered me, they just kept it real with me every step of the chance, and then they just started coming at me super hard. And I'm a Florida kid, knowing me, I'm a kid that just wants to stay in Florida.
Yeah. And, I read that you grew up a Miami fan. So having that offer come in as you're about to commit to Oklahoma, I mean, what was it like seeing your dreams come true?
I mean, I always had two schools that were my dream schools, and those two were my dream schools. So having a chance to pick the two schools out of my dream schools, just a blessing. Just knowing God's works is working, for me.
Mm. So when you got that offer from Miami, who was the first person you told?
Oh, my dad, for sure. Yeah, my dad. We was actually at the 7-on-7 camp after I balled out at the 7-on-7 camp. First person I called was my dad.
Mm. Did he know it's a wrap?
Nah, because we was still looking at other schools. When they first offered me, I didn't think I was going to actually really commit to them. So, I was so into Oklahoma. And things were like getting close to committing day. So me and him both thought it was going to be Oklahoma or UCF.
Wow. So I know part of this decision, it came down to you have a great relationship with offensive coordinator Shannon Dawson. What's that like? How often do you guys speak?
We speak probably every other day. Our relationship, we actually had a relationship since the beginning of my freshman year. So I knew him for a very long time. That's why I committed to them was really no problem because I already had a great relationship with the whole staff.
All right. Now, we're going to get into your ranking. You're ranked as the 22nd best quarterback in the country, but you're also one of these guys that can go out and throw for 500 yards, 4 or 5 touchdowns. It maybe the numbers don't correlate exactly with your ranking. What do you think you should be ranked?
Personally, me, I think I should be ranked in the top 5 quarterbacks, in my opinion. I think my rankings were too high. People say my size. Everybody say I could play football just fine. They just say my size. When you look at me, first person I say is look at Bryce Young. Look at his size. Look what he did.
Yeah.
The size things don't really mean nothing to me. Look at Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels was not a big guy. They actually say me and Jaden Daniels was the same size as when he was in high school. So I think I should really be in the top 5.
Yeah. And, here at On3, we do the rankings. Of course, you know that I just run YouTube. I'm a YouTuber, essentially. I don't have anything to do with the rankings, but I see people all the time. And every time we do a Miami video, they're saying, oh, Josh's ranking is too low. He needs to be higher. So what does it feel like to know that people are rooting for you, fans, they have your back in all this? What's that feel like?
It just feels amazing knowing that all the fans are just behind me, especially the Canes fans. Me being there in the next year from now, knowing they
Mhm.
always gonna be rooting for me, and then when I get to just lead on and lead their team, I know they'll be behind my back.
Yeah. Now, you may not know this name, Quentin Flowers. Does that ring a bell?
No,
Quentin Flowers was a Miami Jackson High School quarterback, probably about 10 years ago. He went to similar size, similar stats, like he was a video game number stat guy at Miami Jackson High School, and he went to USF. And he went on to break all the records at USF. Everybody looked over him. I mean, honestly, it's the reason why Willie Taggart got the job at Oregon because of what Quentin Flowers did at USF. But so I just wondered, who do you model your game after? Inside Scoop listeners, let's talk Prize Picks. And here's what I want to do. I want to give you $50. How's that going to happen? Well, if you play $5 in lineups, after that play, whether you win or lose, you're going to have $50 in your account. All you got to do is play $5 in lineups. All right. So this week with the NFL playoffs coming, I am thinking about Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes on the more than passing yards, but also like Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley. What are you guys playing this weekend with the NFL playoffs coming? Now, Prize Picks. We love Prize Picks because of the easy withdrawals, easy gameplay, and an enormous selection of players and stat types. That is what makes Prize Picks the number one daily fantasy sports app. So here's what we're going to do to get that 50. Go to prizepicks.com/inside scoop. Promo code Inside Scoop to receive a guaranteed 50 once you play $5 in lineups. That's Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy.
I really have been looking at Jaden Daniels for the longest. We similar side, like I say, we similar side, we similar play style. We both can run the ball and throw the ball greatly. So, Jaden Daniels,
Hmm. You play with a little chip on your shoulder?
I do, I really do.
I like that. Now let's switch gears. When was your last visit to Miami, and what do you like so much about being down in Coral Gables?
My last visit to Miami was 2 weeks ago from the Battle 707 tournament. But before that week, I was actually there on the move-in date, watching all the other guys move in and stuff, and just get settled in.
So that could be you in a year. Are you going to be an early enrollee in that group?
Yes, I am.
Did you feel that? Did you get a sense like, wow, this is going to be me in 1 year?
Yeah, I was actually there just talking to my dad about, ooh, this really finna be me in 1 year. Then we
Hmm.
just started going on and on. The coach was just there, just talking to me how it's really finna happen.
All right. Now we're a couple months away from you being committed to Miami for a year. Are being in the quarterback position, do you feel a sense of responsibility that you need to be a vocal recruiter for Miami?
Of course, for if you're committed to any school, of course you want to be the vocal leader, especially being a quarterback. You want to be the vocal leader of the recruiting. You
Mhm.
got to get to know your team more than anybody does.
Anybody you know off the top of your head that you're in contact with that you really want to make a Miami Hurricane?
Of course, you got the tight end. Well, y'all say athlete, tight end to me, Hence Keys, however you say his name. Then my teammate, of course, Larry Miles. Then
Hmm.
we go down south, Calvin Russell, Naeem Burrows. There's a lot of guys I could really name. It's just I just been on the trail recruiting.
So what's your future visit plans? I know you're going to be back in Miami, but will you be at any other programs?
No, I really won't. Since I always say this, since I was been committed to Miami since the summer, I really just been committed to them.
Mm. All right. What are your goals this offseason? As improving as a player, what are your goals?
Just really everything that I did during last season. Just want to improve on everything I really did. Becoming the vocal leader again of the team. Everybody listening to me. Just really improving on everything.
Mm. All right. Let's wrap it up. Talk to Miami fans right now. What type of player are they going to get when Dereon Coleman steps on campus in Coral Gables?
You gonna get another alpha like y'all have from Cam. That's really all I have to say. Y'all just gonna get even more alpha dog like Cam was.
Mm. All right, Dereon. I appreciate your time. Really enjoyed talking to you. Good luck this offseason. I'm sure we'll catch up again before you enroll at Miami.
Yes, sir.
Let's talk a little Ohio State recruiting today. You know, the Buckeyes are coming off that national championship. The confetti is still falling, but the coaches are already out on the road recruiting. I bet it's great walking into schools right after you won the national championship, and that's what we're going to break down today. We got Alex Gleitman from Letterman Row. He's going to take us behind the scenes of what's going on in Ohio State recruiting. But before we get into it, guys, do me a favor right now. Hit subscribe to the On3 Recruit channel. We're trying to get this thing to 100K. I think Ohio State fans can help. Hit that subscribe button. All right, let's bring in Alex Gleitman, Letterman Row. Alex, covering recruiting must be fun right now. What's been the recruit reaction after the national championship win? Is it really resonating with recruits?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, there's tons of good things to talk about. What Ohio State just did. I mean, and it's weird because it's the first year of the 12-team playoff. I think every year after this, a team is going to do something similar. Mm-hmm. But going through, especially after what happened on November 30th against Michigan, going through Tennessee, Oregon in kind of blowout fashion, beating Texas in Dallas, and then the exclamation point against Notre Dame is obviously giving Ohio State a ton of momentum on the recruiting trail. I really almost have sympathy for the coaches in the sense that with the new calendar, they really had no time off to enjoy it, sit back, relax, really take it all in. As you said, they're right back on the road. And they actually had some recruits on campus this week, I should say, at the celebration on Sunday. And now they're out on the road at different schools. They started with Ohio, really focusing on some of their commits for the next class, as well as some of their bigger targets. And then, they're going to branch out nationwide throughout the rest of the week. But yeah, as you said, Josh, it's just really resonating. A lot of excitement around the program right now. They showed that they can reach the pinnacle of the sport with Ryan Day as the head coach, which was a question just 2 months ago. And they also, with what they're going to put in the NFL draft in a couple of months here, could be up to like 15 guys drafted. So you have the development, check the box to get you to the NFL. You now could check the box that Ryan Day could win a national championship and hopefully many more in Columbus at Ohio State.
Yeah, so as Ohio State fans kind of shake off this championship hangover that they're coming out of, it's time to focus on 2026. And don't worry, because Brian Hartline, he's already got his guy. That's Chris Henry Jr., the number one wide receiver in America. He's been locked in for nearly a year already. And, he says all the right things, but he is taking visits to other schools. So as we start the 2026 cycle, how should Ohio State fans kind of take these visits? What does it mean?
Yeah, I mean, look, you prefer if you're the guy who's arguably the number one recruit in the class wasn't going to visit Oregon or USC or other schools. I think Chris Henry Jr., though, with Pac-Man Jones as his guardian, his mentor, is very level-headed about this. I don't think he's someone who's going to make any irrational decisions. Like, everything's going to be calculated and methodical in this process. And I think this is just the new college football. Not that this is really allowed within the rules right now, but there's a lot of programs paying kids to come visit schools. There's a lot of just different things going on with NIL opportunities and things like that. I think where Chris Henry Jr. is, though, is as long as Ryan Day and Brian Hartline are at Ohio State, I feel really good about Chris Henry Jr. signing with Ohio State. I think he obviously has to be prepared if one or both of those things isn't the case by the time he signs in little less than a year, I guess, at this point. If that's not the case, he needs a backup plan, right? And I think right now Oregon probably looks like the top choice to be that backup plan, but I don't really see the Ducks being able to flip, or anyone else really being able to flip Chris Henry Jr. unless both of Ryan Day and Brian Hartline are on Ohio State. At least one of them would have to leave the program for it to even be a possibility, in my opinion. So I wouldn't panic right now, Ohio State fans, but it's obviously something to watch over the next year.
And to me, maybe Ohio State fans can take solace in this, but maybe this plays out exactly how Jeremiah Smith's recruitment played out. I mean, he said at every turn that he was solid, but I'm going to still check out these other schools. And in the end, he was all Ohio State. So maybe, do you get the same kind of feel from this Chris Henry recruitment?
Like, yes and no, as far as, the visits that are going to happen and the storylines that are going to come out. I actually do think, while I do believe Jeremiah that he was pretty solid with Ohio State with Hartline and Day there, I do think there was probably more of a chance that a Miami or Florida State last minute could have swooped in and got him. I mean, supposedly Miami almost did that.
Yeah.
But I think Chris Henry's like a little bit more solid than maybe Jeremiah was at the time. But I do think there's a lot of similarities between the two. Obviously, it'll be really interesting. Ohio State thinks he can make a Jeremiah Smith-like impact, although it'll be really interesting because Jeremiah Smith's only 2 years older than him. So they'll be there at the same time, which could be a great opportunity for Chris and a selling point. Ohio State, hey, you play with him for a year, you learn the ropes from one of the greatest to ever do it at the college level, and then you kind of take over that role for the next 2 years before you're a top NFL draft pick too.
Okay. I like that. Let's move on to arguably the most important position. And I say that because Ohio State fans are always in the comment sections of any Ohio State video I do saying, well, what about offensive line? Or, well, if we can't recruit the offensive line, what does it matter? So let's talk about the number 1 overall offensive tackle, Jackson Cantwell. Now, we know what happened with Jordan Seaton. We know what happened with David Sanders Jr., but this year, the focus is on number 1 offensive tackle, Jackson Cantwell, and he's been to Ohio State. He's a major target. So as the 2026 cycle begins, where do you think the Buckeyes stand with Cantwell?
Yeah, I mean, look, I've been someone from the jump that doesn't feel that Ohio State is – like, I would take the field, no doubt, over Ohio State as of today. I think that they've made progress. They had a strong visit, whatever it was, about a month ago. I think that was a really positive visit. And you asked me before the impact of the national championship on the recruiting trail. I would say no position more than offensive line is positively impacted by Ohio State's run to a national title just because of what they were able to do, what Justin Fry showed from a development standpoint and a coaching standpoint. Losing Josh Simmons in October, projected first-round pick, losing the Remington Trophy award winner Seth McLaughlin right before the Indiana game in late November. And being able to move Donovan Jackson from guard to tackle, moving Carson Hinsman, who came in at guard, moving him to center, putting in Luke Montgomery in the college football playoff to start for the first time at left guard while rotating Tegra Tshibola and Austin Sareveld as well at guard, and winning a national championship in quite honestly dominant fashion over that 4-game stretch doing so. I mean, that there may not be a more impressive coaching accomplishment than what Justin Fry did this past year when you look at the landscape of college football. And I know that is resonating with offensive linemen, including Jackson Cantwell. So I do think Ohio State maybe has his eye here. I think that they need to seize that opportunity, get him back on campus this spring, lock down an official visit this summer, and they'll be in the mix to have a shot. But I'm still taking the field over Ohio State for Jackson Cantwell.
All right. Well, we will follow that storyline as this recruitment goes on. Last question. We'll wrap it up with this. When can Ohio State fans expect the next big visit weekend in Columbus?
Yeah, they had a nice little group, including many offensive linemen for the celebration, national championship celebration in Ohio Stadium. There's about 45,000 fans there. And that was a good opportunity to get some of their big fish, especially there's 3-4 big guys on the offensive line in state that were able to make it. I've been told that they're not going to be doing a traditional junior day over the next few weeks throughout the month of February. It seems like they're really going to focus on hosting most of their bigger targets during spring ball, March, April. We're still waiting for the schedule on that. Obviously, their season ended a lot later than it normally does. So trying to figure out that schedule, but I wouldn't expect a big visit weekend until spring football starts for Ohio State.
All right. Ohio State fans, how we feeling coming off this national championship? And when you talk about recruiting, who are your most important targets for the 2026 cycle? Let us know. Comment section below. We are talking some LSU recruiting because I got my guy Shea Dixon from the Bengal Tiger. He's here in Nashville, so why not? There's a big weekend coming up. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But Shea, there were so many ups and downs with the LSU recruiting cycle in 2025. We've moved beyond that. LSU currently has a top 5 class in 2026, 6 commitments so far, but no quarterbacks yet. So I want to talk to you about Joe Sloan's top QB targets, and we'll start. Well, they're all flips, and here they are. We got Jake Fetty here at the top, Arizona State quarterback commitment. Is this a name that LSU fans need to know?
Josh, I would argue that at this stage, in January is an evaluation period, right? So Joe Sloan and coaches are out on the road seeing all these prospects. That'll shut down this week. I think that when the dust settles, Jake Fetty will maybe emerge as the top target here. He's an El Paso kid, so he's in Texas. Arizona State obviously did have a great season, but they're not going to let up on recruiting him. So when you look at a group of guys, quarterback dominoes fall early. No shock that the majority of these guys are committed somewhere. And they had the Underwood commitment all the way till December. So now it's like, okay, time to start over beyond the Faison Brandons of the world.
Right.
And I think Jake Fetty is the name we're going to watch maybe most closely moving forward.
All right, so looking at the rest of the field here, we got Jonas Williams. He's committed to Oregon. We got Keyshawn Henderson. He's committed to Houston. We got Dia Bell, who is committed to Texas, firmly so. He said so right here on the On3 Recruits channel last week. How do you kind of grade the field here? Who's a priority?
I think all of them right now, until you figure out which ones are kind of really interested, where things stand with NIL, how that comes into play. And then these kids are from all over the country. That's why I usually like to focus on border states with LSU. They do very well there. In Texas, Jake Fetty, and then Keyshawn Henderson as well. He is committed to Houston, but we'll see if that will last for Willie Fritz and company. Yeah. He's going to obviously become more and more of a national name as
he is
as guys get an eye, as coaches get an eye on him. But he has an offer, so he's one to continue to watch. And Jonas Williams, Dia Bell, these are guys who had been to campus, thrown last summer. He's been recruiting them for a while, but they pop for other schools. But you don't give up, because we saw it with Underwood. But even then, with the portal, you recruit kids all the way through, because if they ever hit the portal, they're coming right back to answer the phone for the coaches who kind of stayed with them till the end.
Yeah. So you're right. In this Keyshawn Henderson recruitment, he's gaining offers. I think Florida State, Georgia in the past 10 days have jumped in this one. Kind of looks like the Keelan Russell recruitment of the 2026 cycle, possibly. Commits real early to Houston. They got a really good quarterback, but can they hold on to him? So we'll see. All right, so those are some of the top targets. Quarterback recruiting only going to heat up for LSU. But let's talk about what's happening in the Bayou this weekend. We got a big junior day. Some of the names we're tracking, these are some big ones, Shay. Who do you think fans need to keep an eye on?
Two Baton Rouge kids, I know that in this current class, 2026, that everybody's focused on, both sides of the ball, would be Blaine Bradford and Lamar Brown. Blaine Bradford is the number one safety in the country on 3. Lamar Brown is one or two in terms of interior offensive lineman. He plays D-line as well at U-High. That's been kind of a thought of which way would he go. Maybe he's leaning O-line. But both those guys have visited everyone. I mean, they have taken the kind of who's who tour of college stops as they were juniors and sophomores. So entering the spring of their junior year, I think both of them are realizing, all right, it's time to start taking it seriously and getting Bradford and Lamar Brown on campus for junior days, when a lot of teams are having events this weekend. Keeping them there, I think, is big. With Lamar Brown, I think it's LSU A&M battle. We'll see. And then with Bradford, he's been into Notre Dame. I wouldn't count out Oregon, who he just visited. And then LSU, obviously, being the local school. And Jacob Bradford, his brother, just signed with LSU this past cycle. So those are two big local names we're keeping an eye on. As you mentioned, they've got a great start to the 2026 class, and I think it's almost entirely kids from Louisiana, unless it's maybe one not from Louisiana, but that's where they want to start, and might as well continue to add with it Baton Rouge pieces.
And wide receiver Jabari Mackey's from Louisiana as well. We talked about him on the Inside Scoop earlier this week, or on Sunday, because he was at Texas. Yeah. So this weekend, really important visit. He's going to be back at LSU. Where do you think the Tigers stand with him?
I'd go back to, he goes to Destrehan, and Destrehan kids don't leave very often for schools that aren't LSU. Justin Jefferson, all of his brothers obviously went to Destrehan, and they signed Jace Thomas out of Destrehan this past cycle. The year prior, they signed a couple of players out of Destrehan. So, yeah, I think that they're in good shape there. Looking at kind of his recruitment, which has been national. He's had 30 offers since he started playing there, but still been a top 50 player, and I think a major priority for them.
All right. Is Texas probably the biggest threat right now?
It's funny. A&M had been the team that LSU was battling beyond Bama for recruits, and it would be East Texas kids usually, or into Louisiana. That shifted when Texas joined the SEC, because Texas started playing you can play in the SEC card. And now this past cycle, we saw it. LSU and Texas were flipping guys and going back and forth. So, yeah, I do think that We've mentioned them a couple of times now, A&M, yes, with Lamar Brown, but I think Texas is a school that LSU fans are going to start talking about a lot more.
Yeah, we're seeing it. All right, so let's wrap it up with this. LSU fans are going to be all over the Bengal Tiger this weekend, checking out all the action from Junior Day. Who do you think, is there anybody that you would put on commit watch for this weekend?
I always lean towards underclassmen because often they can pop, and guys who are, 20,
not as much pressure on them.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And you can still take your time and do everything. And a guy I think fits that bill is Ahmad Hudson, who Steve Wiltfong put in the first on 3 RPM pick for this week in favor of LSU. His dad played basketball at LSU. He's a 2-sport star at Ruston, but tight end, wide receiver, can jump out the gym. We're seeing it right now at Trey Green at LSU. Had a breakout freshman year, 5-star, 2 touchdowns in the bowl game, and then all of a sudden he's getting in the game versus Bama at Bama in a basketball game, throwing down dunks. So Ahmad Hudson is that type of athlete, and they'll certainly be pushing for his commitment. And we'll see where the future takes him, but wide receiver, tight end is what he's going to end up.
All right, there you go, LSU fans. How cool is this? Shea Dixon at the desk with us here in Nashville. Let's talk some Alabama recruiting, because the Tide and the coaching staff, they have been busy on the recruiting trail. That's why we got the best insider in the Bama market, Tim Watts from Bama Online, on this one to talk about where these Alabama coaches have been, where they're going, who they've seen, and a monster Junior Day this weekend in Tuscaloosa. We're going to cover it all, but first, Alabama fans, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button to the On3 Recruit channel. This is the best recruiting channel on all of YouTube, and we want Alabama fans to be a part of it. Jump on board, hit subscribe. All right, let's bring on Tim Watts from Bama Online. And Tim, we talked about it a lot on the Inside Scoop last cycle about Bama recruiting nationally, and it looks like they're still recruiting nationally in a big way. Kalen DeBoer, he's been recruiting everywhere from California to Florida. Tim, where have they been this week?
They're just all over. I mean, they started out in the state of Alabama, but, this week alone, they went from Alabama to California to Florida, where they also had the Senior Bowl in Mobile, and now they're headed to the DMV area. On top of that, we've seen double digits. Andrew Bone dropped a story this morning on Bama Online. They've dropped double-digit offers basically every week. Between me, Andrew Bone, Joseph Hastings, it's hard keeping up with it. Kids are tweeting offer. They're traveling all over, not to mention the assistants that are going different places. But Kalen DeBoer has been very, very active.
Yeah, how many miles has he put in during the month of January? Because now we're in a contact period. This wasn't always a time of year where head coaches could get on the road, but he is taking full advantage of the contact period.
Yeah, math isn't my specialty, but a lot. I mean, he's been all over again. They've been to Florida multiple times. They've been to Texas. They've been to Ohio. There's really not a lot of areas as far as big spaces they haven't covered. There's been a lot of gasoline, a lot of sky miles for the coaching
staff. So let's review some of this, some of these stops. On Monday, he was in California. Who was Alabama seeing in California?
Yeah, Brandon Arrington. He's a top 10. He's a top 10 type player, 10-2-5. 100-meter guy, can play on either side of the ball. Very, very elite. Alabama's been, recruiting him for a while. Has, I think a lot of schools have been recruiting him. But, Kalen DeBoer went out on Monday to see him. But a couple of weeks earlier, Courtney Morgan had went out. So they're definitely making him a priority. And on the way back from California, and of course, they saw other guys like Matter Day. They went by Matter Day. We'd spend a whole 10-minute segment talking about the prospects they have. Mark Bowman, 2026 tight end that just reclassified from 2027 is there. But they also, a prospect I really like that they stopped on the way out. They stopped at Bishop Gorman and saw Jet Washington, who's Kobe Bryant. You know how much I love basketball, but he's Kobe Bryant's nephew. And if you watch him on tape, I mean, you can see the athleticism, 6'4" safety, can do a little bit of everything, but another guy that they've been recruiting really hard.
Yeah. All right. So then they Kalen DeBoer flew from California to Vegas. And then on Tuesday, he was in Florida. Who are the Tide's top targets in Florida that he was checking in on?
Yeah, safety Caden Hall's one I think a lot of people have been looking at. He's expected for the Junior Day. Trent Henderson, he's a bit of a monster. Edge kind of guy's got a lot of offers. That Panhandle area historically has been good to Alabama. There's a lot of, it's kind of like, they call it a little bit like lower Alabama. Mobile, and that Panhandle kind of mixed together. A lot of Alabama representation there. But Trenton Henderson's one. Grant Wise is a kid that's got probably very underrated right now, considering all the schools that are recruiting him. But an offensive lineman went in there, hit a few. Now they had double duty. They had to dip over to the Senior Bowl where the Alabama players were competing and be seen and everything over there. But they bounced back, and then today, of course, they headed to the DMV.
Yeah. So in the DMV, I can only imagine. I'll give you two names. I know who they're going to see. They're going to see offensive tackle Emmanuel Iheanacho and also Zion Ely, the number one edge in the country. So, Tim, where do you think it's early? Zion Ely's already committed to Maryland, but he's committed to Maryland. Iheanacho is not committed. Where do you think Bama stands early on with each of these guys?
I think they're still in the, to me, this early. I mean, the 2025 class hasn't even officially ended. I mean, It's not even over. So this is kind of the jab, slow dance phase of the wooing. So I think Alabama's going to go in there. And one thing I've liked about Alabama, they know when to fight and when not to fight, when they're just not going to be a factor. So I think they're in that filling out stage because these guys, I mean, very unique, could easily be number 1 and 2 in the country. Definitely probably in consideration for number 1 at each of their positions. Again, very elite prospects, and they're going to have their choice of schools to choose from. But I think the Alabama staff's going to meet them, meet the head coach. The next step's trying to get them on campus, maybe in spring, try to get them for an official visit in the summer. I mean, that's kind of how all recruitings are going to go. But these two guys are going to be two big-time targets.
Yeah, it ain't where you start, it's where you finish is especially true when it comes to recruiting. So, just kind of early on those guys, but good to see that the Tide are involved. So we talked at the beginning that there's a big junior day in Tuscaloosa this weekend. Who are the names that Bama fans need to be following? Inside Scoop viewers, listen up. On3 is proud to announce the first stop of the Greatest Generation Tour at Asheville High School in Asheville, North Carolina. We are in partnership with the Army National Guard, and we are honored to recognize the Asheville High School football team as Team of the Year. Now, after Hurricane Helene brought devastation to Western North Carolina, this team faced significant challenges that disrupted their season and the community's sense of normalcy. So, despite the adversity, the Cougars came together, finishing their season strong and providing a source of hope and connection for their community each Friday night. So we look forward to celebrating the Asheville High School football team next week.
I mean, we've touched on some of them. Brandon Arrington's going to be coming in, Henderson, Grant Wise. Some of the guys we've already touched on will be in. But, one guy I'm always watching is Anthony Tank Jones from Mobile, St. Paul, a defensive end, edge guy. He's got the body to grow into several different positions. Huge upside. And I know Christian Robinson's did a lot of work there. One of Alabama's first stops when Kalen DeBoer went to see him. So he's a guy. Perhaps the most interesting to me is E.J. Kroll, Ezekiel Kroll, who just reclassified from 2027 to 2026. So now his recruitment is sped up a whole year. He was a top 10 guy in the 2027 class. He's a running back. So now you went from just, having him get to know the staff to now he's officially in recruiting mode. So he's one I'm interested. He's been to Alabama a few times, but probably the number 1 running back in the country, certainly in consideration for that.
Wanted to ask you something before I let you go. Xavier Griffin, I guess he's a 4-star, but he's the number 24 ranked player in the country, number 2 linebacker in America. He was on the show this week, and Xavier told us that, despite him playing high school football in Georgia and committed to USC, he's actually from the state of Alabama and mentioned to me that Alabama has been in touch. They're consistently in touch. Is this a guy that Alabama fans need to know moving forward, Xavier Griffin?
Yeah, I believe his mom played basketball not far from me at Montevallo College, and I think he said he's from Huntsville, North Alabama, so he's got some connections here. Alabama's definitely been by to see him. Christian Robinson has did a good job there recruiting, built a good relationship. I mean, USC is going to do everything they can to hold on to him, but it's been hard for USC to keep those Georgia commitments that they commit really early, you got to keep just chipping away there. Not saying, Xavier won't flip or will flip, but Alabama's definitely going to be recruiting him. He's got some connections, but it won't just be Alabama. This is a national recruit. There's going to be a lot, but I will say Christian Robinson has that tendency to build really good relationships. Last year, Justin Hill's a prime example. Went into Ohio, beat Ohio State for an in-state kid. And they spoke highly of him. So he's the one working that Wolf position, the Wolf coach for Alabama.
All right, Alabama fans, talk to Tim Watts and I. How are you feeling about this class so far, and how are you feeling about the big junior day in Tuscaloosa this weekend? Let us know who you're tracking. Comment section below.